Marvel Rivals isn't dead, but the honeymoon phase is definitely over. Player numbers have dropped to a much more reasonable live service state, and the game is no longer setting the world on fire. I've been tracking the chatter online from both commenters as well as streamers, content creators, etc., and I think I've nailed down the main reasons why the hype has died. For one, the base gameplay format and design philosophies of everything being unbalanced everywhere all at once has diminishing returns to its long-term playability. It's sort of like dubstep. How many deep bass drops can you really enjoy before you start to move on to another genre? There's a reason why the Rolling Stones still hold up to this day, but Limp Bizkit has aged out. With these types of games, the discovery phase is a big part of the fun factor, and as the player base learned the mechanics, and specifically learned how many easy, broken, instant value mechanics that are in the game, well, then the players are going to be hit in the face with how severe and brutal some of those plays are. In other games, maybe like Counter-Strike, you have to deal with one-shot kills to the head from either a rifle or a sniper, but in Marvel Rivals, there's heroes that get up on you and destroy you, whether it's Wolverine essentially insta-killing a tank with his CC and combo follow-up, or Spider-Man flying through the sky, dive bombing into your backline. And you know, there's like 5 different Spider-Man options that can kind of do that as well. He's probably the most severe with mobility, but people don't really necessarily love playing against Black Panther or Iron Fist, or take your pick on whatever meta chosen dive character that's way easier in Marvel Rivals than in the comparison hero shooter game Overwatch. And not to mention any of the flavor of the month balancing characters that either get giga buffed or get an OP oppressive team up. Everything you need to know about the Marvel Rivals design is that they looked at something like the Torch and Storm team up, which was very cool, but not utilized so much. And they made it into the best combo in the game, adding the Jeff NATO, which is the strongest ult pairing the game has ever seen. That is Marvel Rivals design in a nutshell. And you got to give them credit because they're not pulling back from it. They're not looking to balance it. They're not looking to tone it down. They just think that the hero ban system can solve it. But really, I think that they need to upgrade the hero ban system quickly. They're adding heroes much faster than Overwatch, so I think they need to add at least 1 or 2 extra ban rounds as well. And for me personally, I think a way that Marvel Rivals can swing back to compete against Overwatch for my dedicated hero shooter of choice, I kind of oscillate between the two, is if they added a draft mode. Because it already feels like the case of the different matchups that are in play are so severe that if you weren't prepared to deal with a certain ultimate or a certain combo or whatever, that your team just gets blown out. Yes, there is skill expression in the game, but it's way different than it is in Overwatch, whereas in Overwatch, for the most part, your skill expression goes a long way. In Marvel Rivals, the team comp does a lot of the heavy lifting of the interactions of the game, and at least for me personally, I don't care to play a mirror match to try to optimize the most broken combos all the time. I think that's far less fun, and a hero draft with exclusive pick on each side could make for interesting matchups and creativity. You'll still get blown out by those same mechanics, especially if your team doesn't draft well, but I think that's part of the flavor of the game, and that would be a lot more interesting to me anyway, as opposed to everyone just kind of spamming the best stuff at each other, which I think makes the gameplay look visibly dumb, honestly, a lot of the time. But I think the game's super fun still. For fun factor alone, I adore playing Magneto, Hulk, Star-Lord, and you know, there's usually too many support players, but Mantis is a lot of fun. I even find Luna fun. Maybe I just like to AFK and watch her dance on her ultimate for an entire Lollapalooza concert. Maybe I'm self-reporting on that one. But essentially with the hero design of Marvel Rivals, it reminds me of Overwatch 1, but in much more severe extremes. Whereas Overwatch 1, it launched, there was no way for a character like Symmetra to in any way interact with the Pharah. Whereas over time, almost a decade long, Overwatch really wanted to try to make it so that every character sort of had some plays to make against every other character. Kind of an insane concept, and in many ways, it homogenized the design. Well, in Marvel Rivals, they're straight up rock, paper, scissors to at least that one hero on the enemy team that you can hard counter. It's kind of nonsense and silly, but that's just the nature of these hero shooter games designed in the 6v6 open queue format. I don't hate it, but if you think you're you're just going to like grind your favorite character and have a good matchup all of the time, this kind of game doesn't really reward that. At least not if you actually want to win. If you want to win, you probably should learn a little bit of Wolverine or Strange or some of these other picks that are just so meta dominant, because really the individual skill expression of the game doesn't output as much value as the top counter picks and rock, paper, scissors-a-thon that's going up with the team matchups. For me personally, I think the community would be a lot better if they realized that was the case, because I think toxicity has definitely gone on the rise with a lot of tab screen Andes that are holding the tab screen and flaunting that they have MVP, which is a terribly designed system. Horrific. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Because oftentimes the MVP players, it doesn't matter how many deaths they have, but it's just whoever plays the most aggressive, and typically those players are getting resources from the team and dictating the nature of the engagements entirely, often throwing engagements badly, but they farmed up stats and caused the loss perhaps with their bad hero pick, playing suboptimally or overly aggressive. But that spammy style gameplay is what the interior matchmaker and MVP system is rewarding, and it's really indoctrinating the player base to think that that just means skill. It's like, yes, kind of, but there is something to making space. A character that is winning their lane or matchup or section of the map so severely that the enemy has to run away from them might not farm any stats, but you gain the whole map and maybe an objective. Like, that's really what matters at the end of the day. Can their team interact with yours? And you zoning, making space, getting a pick, being a threat, contributing to the way the team fight works can have a much bigger impact to who wins or loses, because this game really isn't about KD at all. Like, it's kind of silly for this game to have such a stat obsession when it's so clearly about having teamwork or counter picks for the enemy. Like, who cares if you farmed up more stats while overstaying your welcome in an ult fight that you already lost? Why is that good? Well, I'll tell you, it's not. Overall, with all these things that I mentioned, Marvel Rivals feels like bumper bowling. Do you know bumper bowling? Well, normal bowling, you have a lot of technique where you have to throw the ball down the lane and do some sort of fancy curve maneuver for it to hit perfectly in the strike zone, and you try to get all of the pins at once. Bumper bowling puts up bumpers on the side of the gutters so you can't miss. And in fact, it's probably more effective to just like launch the ball randomly to bounce back and forth to just sort of hit the pins at the end of the lane haphazardly. Because if you try to play normal, you might actually get less pins somehow. That's how Marvel Rivals kind of plays, where it's approachable. Babies can play it, but it's not as punishing with the technique or as rewarding with the skill as other hero shooter games. Let's just face it, Overwatch. Overwatch is the game that I mean, but I enjoy both deeply. That problem gets exacerbated when you consider that they have an intentionally casually competitive rank system. Stadium uses something similar, I believe, where while it sort of has MMR, your ranks are inflationary in Marvel Rivals. This has been looked at over time, where looking at the rank distribution, it constantly goes up, so that if you put in the playtime, you will gradually go up always, which is very, very bad, because in an MMR system, it's supposed to be mutually exclusive, whereas one player wins, one player loses, one goes up in ranking, the other goes down in ranking. But if they both gradually go up always, well, then everybody's got ranks that they kind of don't deserve. And I find that super crazy, because as I come in and out of playing it somewhat religiously, whether Grandmasters is like the top 1% of the player base or the top 10% of the player base is really just dependent on if I played at the right time or not, or enough, which is not really a competitive matchmaker. But I think if you drop the expectations of it being competitive and just have a good time with your own heroes' plays and their mechanics, that's how you really enjoy the game. So this game, I think, is better for casuals in that regard, because if you want to tune in and out of the game when new content drops, or just to enjoy the mechanics that you like, I think Rivals is a lot more approachable, because it's not intending to be a long-term esport, whereas Overwatch 2 definitely is. I think we just need to be kinder to what Marvel Rivals actually is, because at the very least, they're honest about it. They don't hide or pull punches or pretend it's going to be a game it isn't. It's bombastic fun always. I think really the problem would be if you thought that you were going to play this like your main game for the end of time. That would be a bit of a mistake. I think instead it will make more sense to look at all of these competitive multiplayer games competing against one another. And for me, it's actually better if they each have their own distinct flavors, attitudes, and design principles, because I don't want them to try to be too similar to one another. Some things that I think Marvel Rivals could benefit from is adding map voting like Overwatch. I kind of love it in ranked. I haven't got to play it too much, but oh my gosh, does it feel good for the entire lobby to have more of what they want more often. I don't think they should try to balance the game or add a roll queue or any of those things. However, I do think they should try to upgrade the reliability of the hero band format, either developing it into an entire draft or at least adding more phases. That is the area of the game that's going to mold this chaos into something somewhat reliable. And at least right now, 2 to 4 bans is just not reliably enough. Overwatch does it way better in my opinion, and it's more of a balanced game, so it probably doesn't even need this, but you can't have mutual bans in Overwatch so that everyone in the lobby is kind of contributing to reach up to 4 bans. That's a much better system in my opinion, much more reliable effect from the ban phase. The difference in gameplay in a Marvel Rivals game, if it's 2 bans or 4, is fairly outrageous, because that means some incredibly powerful game-changing kit, either in the neutral, say the big CC of the era, whether it's Bucky, Wolverine, whatever, is like blowing over your tank, or the big ultimate of that patch is probably getting through. Previously, maybe that was Luna Snow's ult, now maybe it's the Storm Jeff ult combo, whatever it is. And then on a personal note, me not making so much Marvel Rivals content recently has been more about me, not my attitude towards the game. I'm gonna be looking to stream it and make more content on it, because I think it's now gone the other way, where the sentiment on the game is overly harsh, and ultimately us as the consumers and hero shooter fans benefit from both Overwatch and Marvel Rivals competing to be the best version of themselves that they can be. So I look forward to that a lot, really. And if you don't like both of those games, maybe you need a more competitive game like Counter-Strike or a more casual game like Fortnite. I don't know how to help you if that's the case, because I think they're both very good. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave it a like, and don't forget to click subscribe and the bell icon to actually get notified when our videos come out. That's been it for me. I've been Frito. I'll see you guys next time. Yeah, this time I'm gonna let it all come out. Jeff Kaplan was always wrong about hero bans.